First of all, thank you to the organizers for putting this evening together. I think this is our fourth session, and I look forward to sharing my thoughts with all of you. Um, First of all, I wanted to make a small correction. When I went through the video, which was shared on the last talk on essence of service, I think a small correction. The book that I was quoting in terms of Brian Weiss, I think it's the Messages from the Master. It's not Many Lives, Many Masters. So I think that's a small correction that I would like to make. Pages remain the same, 181, 182. So having said that, thank you very much for this opportunity and for this evening. And so in terms of you know, we as we grow up from our childhood, we see different forms of leadership, which are all contemporary in nature. If you look at it, you go to a school, you have a teacher, and the teacher is sort of, there is a certain sort of leadership skill which the principal and the teacher displays in the school. You also find that, the leadership in the corporate world, once you enter into a profession, you find that it's all very, very highly competitive in nature. It's cutthroat. We see that the leadership in the military services, for example, they are all appointments are by virtue of nomination, but obviously there is some level of competitiveness in that. And then obviously we all have daily brush with the political leadership that happens, and it's all seems that it's fairly cutthroat and competitive in nature. My understanding of Swami's way, or the Sai way of leadership, is that it is not competitive in nature. It is twofold. It is suffused with two elements. The first element is the servitor leadership, okay, a servant leadership. So you'll say the two words are contradictory, but I'll share more on that and tell you why and how Swami's leadership is actually a servitor leadership. And the second element which is suffused in that is the collective leadership, that you collectively participate and sort of advance the goal, which is actually the ultimate goal of the mission. So that is sort of my understanding. But you see, we normally sort of look at, and it's human mind. It's very natural that we look at everything from the prism of conventional wisdom, and not realize that we are operating within the domain of the Sai kingdom. And the rules and the principles are very, very different, as opposed to either the political leadership or the corporate leadership or the military leadership. It's far, far away from any of that, and it is actually the servitor leadership which Swami has taught us. What has been the essential message of Swami, the core of his teaching, for all the discourses that we have had, and now which is enshrined on his Mahasamadhi, is love all, serve all. Okay, and we spoke last time about how love, and it connects with the last conversation, why love is inert and why service is important. So it's written right there in black and white on a samadhi. You love all, and you put that into action by serving all. Okay, so essentially that's the sort of core of it. I think Luke in chapter 14, canto 11 says, for everyone who exalts himself, will be humbled. Everyone who exalts himself will be humbled, and he who humbles himself will be exalted. Now, it's a very, very interesting concept, that if in your leadership you are somebody who has been humble, okay, the Lord himself will hold your hand and will exalt you. And on the contrary, if you are feeling exalted at all times, you will see that the Lord will humble you. So I think that's a very profound teaching Luke is giving in that chapter 14 to us. Now, you see, most of us have or suffer from the head table sort of mentality, that I need to be at the head of the table. Okay. Whereas the leadership, especially in the spiritual organization, is one which is a servitor leadership and which exalts you. So I think that's my understanding of Swami's teaching on what he expects and how he expects his disciples, his followers, or those inducted into the organization, which is how to conduct themselves and what kind of leadership should they demonstrate. So that's essentially what my learning has been. If you consider yourself as a servitor or the servant of God, it should be one and the only passion you must have. And that passion is to serve and to drive the mission forward. Now, in terms of key learnings, how do you sort of do this? Okay. I think number one is the mission itself. It's actually a divine call in your life. When you engage yourself in Sai work or any divine work for that matter, seva anywhere, it's divine's call in your life, which is to drive the mission forward. Okay. He's the one who changes your heart, actually. He places that element or fires up that element in your heart to actually go and serve. So I think the first fundamental is actually that are you in a missionary mode at your heart, and that trigger has happened to you. I think number two is vision. It is your own take how you want to see the mission. Okay, and let me tell you something very, very important. Vision is very, very important for any sort of organization. Look at Swami himself. You see, his life is an example for all of us. And let me tell you, if there is one leader that we need to follow in the Sai mission, it's Swami. His life, the examples that he has set are breathtaking. There's everything in that. It's like a treatise. His life is like a treatise for us to really learn lessons on leadership from the tiny village where there was no water, there was no electricity, no medical services, to what that township is today as a global city or a global township is an example of leadership. I think there's a great amount to be learned, and that is all the vision. And anybody who is working in the mission must, as a leader, must have a vision. I think that's number two. Number three, I think there are four sort of pillars that I see: mission. Then number two is the vision, and number three is equip. You must equip people who you work with or train them so that you complete the mission. Okay, without equipping them, I don't think you're truly a leader in that sense. The fourth element, and I think the very important element, is the teaming. How to motivate and mobilize those who are equipped to carry out the mission and do work beyond the normal call. I think these are four very, very important elements. And if you really juxtapose, a difference between a leader in a natural environment and those who work in a spiritual organization, what are the various ingredients? We look at it in somebody who has qualities of self-confidence in normal circumstances, has confidence of God, confidence in God in spiritual world. Okay, somebody who knows men in the normal circumstances. Look at the organizations like corporates. You need to know your men. Here, you need to know God. That's important. Then you make your own decisions in the normal circumstances in a natural way. You find God's will in the spiritual world. I think that's how we sort of, that's how we sort of act in the spiritual domain. We are in corporates, military, political. We are ambitious, okay, and in a spiritual organization, we are self-effacing. We try to originate in the normal circumstances. We try to sort of originate our own methods, and here we want to find and follow God's methods. Those are what is His plan and what is His vision that you're trying to sort of trying to implement. Okay. If you look at normal world in which we live, we are motivated by personal considerations, personal ambitions. But whereas in a spiritual organization, we are motivating with love of God and men, both. I think that's a big difference. And last but not the least, we try to act. I mean, because our human mind is such, we try to act independent in sort of normal sort of circumstances or normal kind of organizations, whether it's a work organization, but we are God dependent in a spiritual organization. I think that's the elements where sort of your leadership is. Those are the elements that you must sort of keep in the back of your mind when you're working in a spiritual organization, especially in the leadership position. So I think it's not, every situation will not be perfect. Every circumstance will not be perfect. There will be adversarial conditions, but you must focus and only focus on one thing. I remember, I'm sure a lot of decisions that I took when I was the president in Delhi, a lot of people may not agree with it. Okay. But my only touchstone to arrive at any decision was whether this decision will make Swami happy. Okay. Number one. Number two, that whether it will bring smile to his face. Okay. So if that test was met, I think one would take a decision. Because you see, people are free to have an independent sort of point of view to a particular subject or whatever. But I think it's essential that you keep your focus very, very clear, which is at the lotus feet of your master. I think because of paucity of time that our young friends have now, I have sort of, looked at serve as a word, and it has 5 words, SERVE. S stands for the spiritual gifts. E stands for the experience. And I can tell you, and I am a personal witness to all of this myself, that the amount of experience that I got and I'm getting as a member of the organization is helping a great deal in my other works. It makes me handle things in the other spheres, in my professional spheres or business spheres, in a much better way, because I now have started looking at solutions from a different perspective. Okay. So I think it has helped me. The third, the R is for relational style. R stands for relational style. that you have as a leader. V stands for vocational skills that you develop, which I just mentioned to you. You develop your vocational skills in the process, and E obviously stands for enthusiasm. And I think that's the key that young people should sort of follow in terms of doing service in their local communities, wherever they are. It's all reaching the same God. Whether you are in US, whether you are in UK, whether you're in South America, whether you're doing it in Africa, it is reaching. And it's not that somebody is watching you doing all of that. It is essentially being missionary in your vision, being visionary in your actions and in your thought process, and putting all of that into real-time action, which has an impact on the lives of your fellow brothers and sisters. I think that's very, very important. Very good question. I must say that, there were many, many occasions where you have a conflicting situation or an adversarial position as a leader. But let me tell you something. It is also the leader's evolution that is happening in the process. It's just not that only the other people who are actually following you in the process are going through the churning. It's also the leader going through the churning. So actually, if you ask me, conflicts and adversities are leaders' best opportunity for learning and growing, if you really look at it. Great leaders usually perform well in time of great conflict and adversity, according to me, because I think it's important that you again, that the twin test apply, leave. Sometimes I used to just sort of leave the problem at Swami's lotus feet for a day or so to give me a reflection a little later as to how I should conduct this or how I should make a particular decision, and then come up with the final sort of decision on the subject. Because as a leader, you will have to sometimes take hard decisions, and those are not easy. But as long as you have met the twin test, and it is not based on any bias, or it is not prejudiced by any other ulterior reasons, I think a decision can be taken, and I use that skill all the time. Once you have His grace with you, I think He gives you also the ability to analyze things in a better way. Leaders should embrace rather than avoid formidable challenges. To postpone a challenge is not a sign of a good leader. Okay. To sort of not meet the challenge is also not, according to me, a sign of a good leader. Okay. Because they are the opportunities which bring out leaders' greatest strengths. Ultimately, if you remember, as Kiranji was saying, that, you go back to the previous videos that we have chatted, we have God residing, living God residing within us. Ultimately, that God will not misguide us or take us in a different direction. The God will guide you, because that living master is sitting right inside you. It's not far, and you don't have to go far. You just have to look within and ask him what you need to ask him. And I had often used that when and I still make decisions, and I'm in a different role right now, and in the organization. But those values, those learnings still continue to sort of help me in making my decisions. So somebody at 937 has actually, I don't know the name, I can see on chat box.
Absolutely.
Victims recite problems, leaders present solutions. Okay, there's a very, very interesting sort of story around that. Okay, it's all about how you envision it yourself. Okay, now if you see the Mahavakya of Swami on leadership, which was done none else than our own Lieutenant General Chibber.
Right.
You know, at page 63, there's a very, very beautiful story. Okay. And that story is that two brothers from a very affluent family who have grown up together, had a common heritage, and grown up exactly in the same environment. And if you remember, you know, earlier mothers used to even dress up children in the same dress. If you know, sort of, now it's a different era, but you know, if you had children of similar age, they would dress up with the same set of clothing, same set of shoe, and all that. So it was very interesting. So these boys, both boys, and I'm narrating the story from that book. Both these boys, once they had gone past the college, one day the elder brother was walking through the room, and there was a glass tumbler lying in the middle of the room. Okay. Now that person hit the glass tumbler, and the glass tumbler went flying. Okay. And lo and behold, the next little while after that, he said, you know, this was purposely kept on my path. I could not, it has hurt me. He whined and whined and whined. Okay. And you know, so that happened. And a little while later, and he didn't lift that, you know. And I think that's where we all do mistakes. You know, people do mistakes in this, and I'll come back to that thing. You see, and the second brother, the younger brother, then after a little while walks through the room, and since the tumbler is still lying there, and you know, he hits that tumbler, and the tumbler this time has hurt his foot, his nail, and it's hurting. But you know, the second brother says that, you know, I should have been more careful. You know, I did not look at the glass; it was lying on my path, and I should have been more careful. So it's all about the attitude and learning. Okay, most people, when they come to leadership positions, you know, they you know, instead of letting it to be Sai kingdom, they make it their own kingdom. Okay, now that's not something which needs to be corrected, you know, because I'll tell you, that is an opportunity the Lord has given to you to serve. Okay, and one should not wither away that opportunity on these petty stuff, you know. Like the first elder brother from Mahavakya, if I take that example, you know, don't waste your time on petty things and doing petty stuff. You know, think big, have a bigger vision, look at how the mission is going to grow, how am I going to help and assist in that process. And think, if you get derailed, you know, and I find a lot of people get derailed in the process, because, you know, somebody makes a comment, somebody makes you, and you know, you realize that you have actually derailed from the purpose why Swami in the first place had put you in that position. And that position was actually to accelerate your sadhana, to make you a better person, to make you grow, and also, you know, not to whine, but to always witness yourself like the younger brother, to say that I should have been more careful. Okay, now, so that's what we should learn from that Mahavakya on leadership by General Chibber. If I may add, you know, there are so many, so Swami has inspired so many people to serve his mission, you know. And I sort of, you know, I normally refrain from taking names, but I can't stop myself. You see, look at Mr. Chakravarti, you know, who was the secretary to Swami, and who is now the chairman of the Global Council. Now, you know, he was a senior bureaucrat, and he left that to serve the mission. You know, he made that his goal, to serve Swami. You know, earlier in his physical domain, and now to serve his mission. So look at that. That's one example. You know, even if you look at, I've worked with two All India presidents. It's not easy. It's a lot of work. It's amazing amount of work from morning to evening that you have to do to deliver on the mission. And I've watched them both very, very closely, and it's admirable, to the kind of work that they do. So it's it's something to learn. When you look at these people, there's a great learning there. They are amidst us, and we should probably imbibe some of these qualities that we witness. And there's never to look back. Look back and sort of, we should really, really learn from our surroundings, and because that's the process of growing. Look at the young people managing institutions of Swami. It's incredible, you know. And way back in 2011, we never thought, we were all sort of, wondering how all this will sort of pan out. But look at how capably everyone is responsibly looking after the institutions at Prashanti and at other places. And sort of with full responsibility and gusto and enthusiasm. It's not that it's just the work is to be done, but with all the enthusiasm. What Venkatesh was saying, I think it's very, very important that you will never become a servitor leader. You will never become a servitor leader until you first become the servant to the leader, which is the divine. Okay, so you first must become a leader in serving the divine. Okay, then you would probably land up in the servitor leadership position. That's very, very important in our journey. We must learn that in our journey, and it's very, very important. And at least that's what I have imbibed. That you need to sort of be in subservience and be dutiful to the master. I think it's very, very important. In 2008, just around the Prashanti Seva, our youth from Delhi, I had just become the state president of Delhi in 2008. They planned to take wheelchairs to be given to the needy in the Anantapur district. And actually, that photograph that you see is of that day, right behind me, behind my right shoulder. And I saw that the joy that it gave to Swami. He was all smiles, he was happy, and that gave joy to a lot of people in the Sai World on that day. You see, so that's, I think, very, very essential to see that smile come on his face. So whatever you do must bring smile to him. And I think that test even applies today. Because he's residing within you, so it's unquestionable that you can even still apply that test. Now that he's not physically available to us, but I think he is within us, and we must see that will this particular decision bring a smile to his face. So to summarize, really speaking, the learnings from my experiences on the subject, I think I could sort of, number one, I think a quality of a Sai leader is the humbleness of the heart. Your humbleness is very important, of your heart, not the exterior. I have seen people gesticulating, bending downwards, all doing all of that, and it's all exterior, it's not interior. So that really doesn't help. A humbleness at heart is something which you need to experience as a leader. Number two, first, to be a follower of the divine. Okay, that's number two, which you must do. Number three is you must find greatness in service. That faith in the divine who you're following leads you to your mission in service. Fourth, I think it's very important for a leader to be able to take risks. A person who cannot take risks is not somebody who will make a great leader. I think number five essentially is to take up the mental. You should be in ability to pick up the mantle and deliver. I think that's very, very important. Um, I think number six is sharing responsibility and authority. I think it's very important. You must trust your team that you are going to share this authority with them. You will only share your authority with somebody else when you trust that person. And I think I use that technique a lot. Even now I use that technique a lot. And number seven, build a team. Without team, a leader is nothing. Okay. So I think those are seven important experiential learnings that I can share with you from having worked in the kingdom of Sai. Thank you.